Hello my people, this is my August wrap-up video, which you know obviously because you clicked on it and that's the title of it. Most likely I don't know what I titled this. So this month I read 13 books. I have 1 2-star, 3 3-stars, 3 4-stars, 2 4.75 stars, 3 5-stars, and then 1 6-star, which is like 6 stars for me is when I've reread the book and it's even better than I remembered. So 6 stars. I read a little bit less this month than I did last month. I didn't make a wrap-up video for that month because I was stressed, but we're gonna give you a wrap-up this month. I can't remember exactly how many books I read last month, but I think it was like probably 15 or something like that. But this month I read a little bit less because I started a new job, and that job I can't like sit down with a book. Obviously I can listen to audiobooks, but I was just kind of in like an audiobook slump for some reason, so I wasn't listening to as many audiobooks. I was watching more YouTube videos. So the books that I've read has like kind of gone down. Most of them were at the beginning of the month and then like a couple towards the end. The first book that I read this month was A Proper Scoundrel by Esther Hatch. Oh, most of these books, by the way, I got from my library, either through Libby or it was an audiobook or a physical book. And so I don't have like the physical copies to show you. I have 3 physical copies that I can show you of the books, but the rest of them I just got from my library, which I really like. And some of these books I might actually buy the physical copy of later because like I liked it that much. What is my Google Docs doing? It's updated since I've used it last, and it's driving me bonkers because it's giving me all these like, do this, do that, do this, do that. And I'm like, I don't care. Okay, so first book that I read this month was A Proper Scoundrel by Esther Hatch. And this book was really, really good. So this was the 3rd book in this series, and it was like the Proper Scandal series or something like that. And all of them involve a girl and a guy getting into like I think it's the girl who always gets into the scandalous position, but she's like trying to make it a scandal on purpose. So like it's not like an accidental scandal, it's like scheming kind of. And these books were more lusty than other books that I enjoyed, other books that I like. So the other 2 books in the series, I think I gave the first one 3 and the second one 4, and then this one I gave a 4.75 because even though it was kind of a little bit lusty, the character like connection was phenomenal. And don't ask me what the main characters' names were because I don't remember, but I loved the tropes of this book because it was a fake dating trope, which I think you figure out really quickly in the book, so it's not like a big spoiler. A fake dating trope, it's hilarious. I laughed at so many points of this book, and the main guy, like you kind of see him through the other 2 other books in this series, and he just kind of like pops in, and I just like every time I saw him I was like, you're gonna show up again, aren't you? You're gonna show up again. I almost gave this one 5 stars, but it just like there was something missing from it that would make it like 5 stars. I don't know what, but maybe if I reread it and I liked it even more, I'd give it 5 stars, but for now it's a 4.75. I was at the library, not the library. I was at the bookstore the other day actually, and I saw that the 4th book in the series has come out, and I was like, I really want to buy this, but it was like $16, and I was like, I can't justify that right now with my current paycheck. So when it comes into my local library, I'll probably get it and read it, but I am excited to continue this series. All right, the next book that I read was for a reading blog actually, where I read Ella. So this is probably going to come out before I read those books, so I'll give you like a tiny little synopsis. Not a synopsis, I'll give you like a little overview of my opinion, but I go way more in depth in that reading blog, which will probably come out, you know, knowing me, within a month, but it's fine. So I read Ella by Jessalyn Stewart Peaslee, Ella's Will, and Always Ella, the stepmother story. Now, I gave the first one, Ella, 4.75. I read Ella and Ella's Will like a long time ago, actually, probably like 5 years ago, and I loved it. Like, it was a 5-star for me. But upon a reread, it wasn't quite as amazing. Like, I still love it. It still has that nostalgia for me of reading this and it being like my favorite Cinderella retelling, but it's just not as like, it didn't pack quite as hard of a punch as I remember it packing. So I gave it a 4.75 stars. Still an amazing book. Still would recommend it to everyone and anyone. But the second book, Ella's Will, which is telling the same story from a guy named Will's perspective, adore. Favorite thing in the entire world. Such a good book. I can't like tell you more than that for fear of spoilers, but like so good. Love Will. He is like my favorite person in the entire world. I would die for him. I gave that one a 6-star. That's my 6-star read because I gave it 5 stars the first time, and upon a reread I loved it even more, so 6 stars. And then Always Ella, the stepmother story. Okay, this was my first read of it, and I did the reading vlog for this video just because I wanted to read this book and I wanted to reread those books, so I was like, why not make it a reading vlog? But the first because it's like 400 something pages long, I think, but the first like 300 pages I was like, because it's a villain story, right? And I typically hate those books. They make me so uncomfortable, and I just, like, they hurt my soul to, like, see the world through not a bad person's point of view, but like a twisted point of view. And so I kind of decided I don't really want to read those anymore. But reading this one, it was different because it's not like a typical villain story. Like, oh, I don't want to ruin it, but it's so good. And the last like 100 pages, I was bawling. Like, actually, why am I about to cry? Like, actually, like, crying my eyes out because it was just so sweet. And honestly, of all of the different perspectives, I loved seeing Ella from the stepmother's perspective the most. Oh, this is a Cinderella retelling. I don't know if I said this, but it was so good. I love that book. I gave it 5 stars. Honestly, thinking about it, the first part of the book, 2 stars. Last 100 pages, 8 stars. So it like evens out. Okay, then I read The Traitor's Kingdom by Erin Beatty. And this book, okay, I have mixed views about this because it's the 3rd book in this trilogy. And the first book I read when I was like 13, and I enjoyed it, but I didn't like, it was too, okay, so there's like not a really spicy scene, but a really spicy scene for me when I was younger in it. And when I was younger, I was like, okay, I can't read the rest of the series, I gotta put this book back, you know? But I've been thinking about it ever since and like wondering about the series, and so I was like, okay, fine, I'll pick it up. But my local library like doesn't have the books anymore. I guess people didn't read them very often, so they like donated them. So I had to find them on Libby, and they only had the audiobooks, so I was like, okay, I guess I'll listen to the audiobooks. Apparently, I hate the author's writing style, specifically in an audiobook, because I don't remember it being bad with reading it, but in an audiobook, I was just, I don't know, it was hard, but I was still like interested, so I kept reading them. So the first 2 books, I think I gave both of them like 3 stars, and this book I also gave a 3 star. It just turns into like this political machinations kind of a thing where there's like a whodunit murder plot, and it just was so boring to me because all of it was comprising characters that like we've seen before in other books but like weren't huge parts of the plot, and then they become the whole plot, and the plot twist that I thought was going to happen didn't happen, and I really wished it did because it would have been so interesting. I don't know, it was just kind of boring. Like, it was still interesting, it was still entertaining, like I still wanted to know what happened, but just like it didn't keep me on the edge of my seat. Like, it just became like my audiobook that I listened to while I was doing something else, and I didn't really have to think about it. It got to the point where I was kind of just like, you know, when you watch a movie and you yell at the screen because something dumb happens? Okay, maybe not everyone does that. I do that sometimes. But I was doing that at the audiobook, just like yelling because annoying things were happening. So I was like, I didn't want to give it a 2 star, but I definitely couldn't get it any higher than a 3. So, okay, then I read All's Fair in Love, War in High School by Jeanette Rallison. She's written other books that I adored. It's My Unfair Godmother series, and there's 3 books in there, and they're all really good, and I really enjoyed them. And when I was younger, I just read those because I'm always obsessed with fairy tales and have been since I was younger, and I didn't read any more of her backlist. I've read like 2 or 3 of them, but the ones that I picked up I didn't really enjoy, so I didn't read any more. But I was at the store, but not the store. I was at the library and I saw this book specifically, and I was like, that one looks good. It was one that like came across, not my feed, but just like, because I used to scroll fantastic fiction when I was younger. So like I would see it on there and I was like, oh, I want to read that one. I didn't know my library had it. So I picked it up just, you know, to make my younger self happy. And I gave it about 4 star. Like, it was really good. I couldn't give it more than that because it didn't have like, I didn't connect as much with the characters as I would maybe if I was a little bit younger. But I really loved the character growth that the main girl goes through. And I liked the story that she has. And it was really good. I really enjoyed that book. I actually really recommend that probably to middle school or high school girls. Like, that was really, really good book. Okay, now we've got The Roses of Feldstone. I'm trying to remember who... Yeah, so I came across 2 new authors in the past couple months that are specifically Regency romances that I wasn't expecting to enjoy, because I've been like on the hunt to find a new Regency romance author that I enjoy like a lot, because I love Jane Austen so much, and you can't really find anything exactly like her, obviously, because there isn't much. But I love Sarah M. Eden, who has some of the best Regency romances I have read in my entire life. Actually, no, the best ones. And then Edenbrook, I like her books. They're not like top of the line for me, but I do really like Edenbrook and Blackmore by Julianne Donaldson. And so I was trying to find other ones like that, and every one that I've picked up has either been like boring, or I don't really like the writing style, or it's too spicy for me, you know? But I found this author, Esther Hatch, and she's the one I told you about before, the Proper Scoundrel books. So I finished that one, enjoyed it, so I picked up another book by her, and it was called The Roses of Feldstone. And I gave this one a 4-star. I really, really enjoyed it. It was kind of shorter. It was like a novella. Okay, so the main characters, I really enjoyed their chemistry. They have like a then and now timeline kind of a thing. And it's not an enemies to lovers. It's like a friends to annoyed at each other to fake dating to lovers kind of a thing. I don't know. It was kind of confusing and it all happened in this short span. But while I was reading it, I didn't realize that there was weird stuff going on in the plot. I was just like invested and I wanted to know what happened and I really enjoyed it. I don't know if I'd ever reread it, but I did really like the relationship. Okay, now we have Highcliffe House by Megan Walker. She's the second author I found recently that I really enjoyed her books. She wrote Lakeshire Park and Fieldcliff? Something. Someone's list. Miss Newberry's List. Yeah, she wrote Highcliffe House, Miss Newberry's List, and Lakeshire Park. Highcliffe House is her newest release, and I listened to it on audiobook because I found it through Spotify because they didn't have it on, they did have it on Libby, but the hold was like a ridiculously long time and I filled out all of my hold slots. So I was like, well, I don't want to like fill up another hold slot with a book. So I found it on Spotify and then I actually found it in physical form in my library later, but it was so good actually. I think for some reason, I kind of got sick of audiobooks in the middle of listening to this one because I was also listening to another one at the same, no, I don't think I was listening to another one at the same time. No, I wasn't. But I just I think this started my audiobook slump specifically and I just didn't really love listening to it. I think if I read it, I would have enjoyed it more. But I did really like the plot. This was an enemies to lovers, forced proximity kind of a thing, and I really liked the main characters. I liked their relationship. There was a lot of sexual tension that I feel like was really unnecessary and didn't need to be added, but it was still a really good book. I would recommend it. It's not it's not top of the line for me. It's not as good as her other books for me, but I really did like it. Now we're on to the first of the actual physical copies that I have. We've got Vanish by Sophie Jordan. Now I read the first book because I found these two at DI and I was like, this looks interesting. It looks like a cute high schooly romance because I was feeling like a high schooly romance at the time. But I read the first one and I just didn't care at all. I didn't care about the characters. I didn't care about the plot, but I already owned the second book. And so I was like, I don't want to just give them both back to DI without reading them. That sounds silly. But I didn't know where the third book was because it wasn't on Libby. And then I thought why don't I just look in my local library? They probably have it. So I looked in my local library, go figure, they did have it. So I picked it up and I don't have the third one anymore because I returned it to the library, but I finished the second one and the third one. I think I'll just talk about them together because I just didn't care. I gave all these books 3 stars, not because they were fantastic or because they were bad. They just were meh. I just didn't have any feelings about them. I probably should give them 2s, honestly. But the thing is, they were interesting. It wasn't boring enough to be a 2. It was just kind of meh because I didn't connect with the characters. I was invested in one specific relationship. I wanted that to happen. It didn't. There's this whole mate bonding situation that I just, number 1, I really hate that in books. But 2, it just was so dumb in this specifically. I don't know. And the main character, she just flip-flop back and forth between things. I wouldn't necessarily recommend these. If you want to pick them up, you can. It's kind of a dragon story too. I don't know. Okay, now we got my only 2-star of the month. Rule number 1, you can't date the coach's daughter. Now this popped up on my Goodreads, if you read this book, you might like this book. And so I added it to my want to read later list. And it just, I should have DNF'd it. I really should have. This one's a 2-star. Specifically because she kept flopping back between things. The main character did. She didn't have one specific original thought in her entire life. Everyone in her life was influencing her to do different things, and I was just I don't care. And it was this whole forbidden love kind of a thing, but it didn't feel forbidden. It just felt dumb, and you don't see his attraction to her at all. It's just her having this attraction, and there's way more sexual tension than there should be for a high school book, in my opinion. It felt dumb, and this one was the one that put me in my audiobook slump because I listened to it on audiobook at work, and people kept asking me what are you listening to? I'm well, it's this book I don't really like, and they're well, you should just stop listening to it or listen to it on 3.5 speed, and I was I already am listening to it at 3.5 speed, and I have a really hard time DNFing books, so I just didn't specifically enjoy it that much. I wouldn't recommend it. All right, we got 2 books left. We've got Places We've Never Been by Casey West. Now this book I read for the first time in college and I didn't love it. Mostly because the main trope is that she's kind of estranged from her best friend, and her best friend, her childhood best friend, she's kind of estranged from him, and then they go on this road trip where they're in forced proximity and he's mad at her and she doesn't know why. And when I first read it, I was going through a really bad friendship breakup, and it was just like it was just too close to home. It just hurt too much to listen to. And so I rated it, I think 3 stars, because I couldn't get with the best friend to lovers thing. But then I reread it because it was a summary read for 1, and for 2 I had it on my Kindle, and I was like, you know what, I own it, I might as well give it another chance, because I also bought it in college on like my Kindle because I wanted a book to read and it had just come out and I didn't know if I could get it at the library there. So I have it on my Kindle. I was looking at it and I started rereading it, and literally within the first like probably 100 pages I was like, this is gonna be a 5 star, isn't it? Like, I can feel it in my bones, it is so good. And I read it and there was like lines that I was underlining and I was crying, and I was like, it's a good book. Like, it just hit my like longing for friendship bone in me, where she just wants to be friends with this guy so badly. Like, yeah, she has a crush on him, but like she just wants to be friends with her friend again. And it just, such a good book. I loved that book so much. And then there's themes of like self-discovery and finding your way in life and like coming of age books. And I know some people can't really get with YA stuff when they're a little bit older, but I think I'm gonna love it, at least for a couple more years, if not my whole life. Like, it's so good. Specifically, Casey West books are so good. And now I think I need to give Borrow Your Heart a second chance, because my own second chance romance, because I read that one and I didn't really enjoy it, so I think I might give that one a reread, because I also own the physical copy of that one. But anyway, 5 star book, amazing. All right, and now we've got the last book that I read this month, which is kind of crazy. We're almost done. Kiki's Delivery Service by Aiko Kadono, I think. So good. So good. So good. It felt like reading my childhood in a book. Like, I watched this movie so many times when I was younger, and I loved it so much. And the first, like, this much is pretty much exactly how the book is, and then in the movie they have to add in like a whole different plot line to make it a movie. But the book kind of just feels like reading someone's diary and like things that happen in her life and how she grows up and becomes more confident in herself. And I love this book so much. I will buy a physical copy. It's gonna go on my shelf. I'm gonna reread it probably every fall because it gives the perfect fall vibes. I read it probably a month too early, but it was just, I loved it. I finished this book and I was just sitting there and I was like, that was a good book. I love this book. I want to find more books by this author because it was amazing, and I love her writing style. Like, it read just like a fairy tale and a childhood book, like a picture book mashed together just in words on a page, and it was beautiful. I love this book so much. And that is all the books that I read this month. I definitely have a couple more authors that I want to go through and read more of their books and give some more books a second chance. I'm really excited for the books that I have coming up my next month. So if you want to see what I'm planning to read in September, you can watch my TBR video, which hopefully should be posted right after this. I don't know how my editing is going to happen, but I'm really excited to read some more books and talk about that with you next month. But thank you for watching. You're the best.